Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. This week, the Smooth Brain crew heads back to Middle-earth to try out 4 different commanders from the new Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth set and Tales of Middle-earth Commander set. Up first is Cody on Frodo, Determined Hero. This deck list was submitted by our patron, Gutty, so thanks Gutty. This deck is a Voltron deck, and Cody hopes to suit up Frodo with 2 and 3 mana equipment to kill all of his opponents with commander damage. He keeps an opening hand with 2 planes, a Sword of Forge and Frontier, a Sword of Truth and Justice, a land tax, disenchant, and a Stone Hewer Giant. Up next is Sam on Tom Bombadil. This deck was originally built by our channel member Caden, but altered by Sam. This deck aims to play sagas early in the game to generate value, cast Tom Bombadil, and use his ability to recycle those sagas in order to get new ones out. He starts the game with a Raugryn Triome, Misty Rainforest, Chromatic Lantern, Elspeth's Nightmare, There and Back Again, Scholar of New Horizons, and Sithis, Harvest's Hand. Our third player is me, Cameron, on Smeagol, Helpful Guide. I built this deck so that the ring can tempt me multiple times per turn, I can steal my opponent's lands, and I can use those lands either to cast big spells or generate value from landfall triggers. My starting hand is a Verdant Catacombs, a Wasteland, 2 Nazgul, a Tireless Tracker, Tireless Provisioner, and a Witch King of Angmar. Up last is Matt on Eowyn, Shield Maiden. This deck is a human tribal deck, and uses Eowyn to help go wide and accrue card advantage in order to overwhelm his opponents with his human army. He keeps a hand with 2 islands, a mountain, a Steam Vents, Arcane Signet, Swan Song, and a Coppercoat Vanguard. We're about to hop right into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our new content. We post new gameplay videos every week, so you won't want to miss it. Big shout out to our patrons. We really appreciate the support. Link to our Patreon is in the description, as well as links to our deck lists, our social media, our podcast channel, and our public Discord server. Our channel is also partnered with Dragon Shield, so if you're looking to pick up any new sleeves or magic-related products, check out our affiliate link in the description. And we're also partnered with Inked Gaming, so if you're looking to make any custom playmats, use our affiliate link also in the description. Now, on to the gameplay.
Cameron wins the die roll, and he starts off with Verdant Catacombs, and he'll crack it for a Woodland Chasm, and then he passes to Matt. Matt says Island Go, Cody says Plains Land Tax Go, and Sam says Raugryn Triome Go. Cameron plays a Swamp and passes, and then Matt will play a Mountain and cast Arcane Signet, and then pass to Cody. On Cody's upkeep, Land Tax will trigger, so he tutors 3 planes to his hand. He'll play 1, cast Blackblade Reforged, then pass and discard a planes on cleanup. Sam will play Misty Rainforest, and he'll fetch with it and shock in an Overgrown Tomb. He'll then tap for 2 and cast Scholar of New Horizons, and then pass the turn to Cameron, who plays a Wasteland as land for turn, then he'll tap for 3 and cast Smeagol, then pass the turn to Matt. Matt will start off with Training Center as land for turn, then he'll cast Coppercoat Vanguards, and then he passes to Cody. Land tax triggers again, so Cody gets 3 more planes. He'll play 1 as land for turn, and then tap for 2 and cast Frodo. And upon entering the battlefield, the Black Blade is auto-equipped. Cody will then pass the turn and discards 3 planes on cleanup. Now on Sam's turn, he'll start off by activating his Scholar and removing its own counter. And since he can find any planes card, he finds Rafine's Tower to the battlefield tap. He'll then play Flooded Strand and fetch for a Breeding Pool. Then he'll cast Sithis and pass the turn to Cameron. Cameron starts off by tapping for 3 and casting a Nazgul. When it enters the battlefield, the ring will tempt him, so he gains its first ability. Smeagol will be his ring bearer. Then, after the ring tempts him, the Nazgul gets a 1/1 counter, and then Smeagol will trigger, targeting Cody. Cody flips into a plane, so Cameron gets it to his battlefield tapped. He'll then play a Baron more, then move to combat and hit Sam for 4 commander, and then he passes to Matt. Matt starts off by shocking in Steam Vents, then he'll tap for 5 and cast Eowyn. The turn is then passed to Cody, who finds another 3 planes to his hand on upkeep, and as usual, he plays another one as land for turn. Then he'll cast Sword of Truth and Justice, then move to combat. He'll swing Frodo at Matt, and so the sword is auto-equipped, so Matt will take 8 commander damage. And upon connecting, Frodo gets a counter, and Cody proliferates it. Cody then passes the turn and forgets to discard to hand size, but we all know it would just be planes, and he makes up for it next turn anyway. Sam will start his turn off with a Chromatic Lantern, then he'll cast Weaver of Harmony, and I apologize for the glare. We recorded a game before this one and there was no glare, so we neglected to check this time, and I apologize. Continuing on, when Sam casts the Weaver, he'll draw a card and gain a life off Sithis. After this, he'll move to combat, and he'll hit Cody for 2, and then pass the turn to Cameron, who starts off with a tireless Provisioner. He'll then play Cabal Coffers as land for turn, and this will trigger landfall, and he makes a treasure. Then with that treasure and his other 2 lands, he'll cast another Nazgul, and when it enters the battlefield, the ring will tempt him again. It gains its second ability. There's 2 Ring Wraith triggers, but Cameron forgets one of them. Then Smeagol will trigger, targeting Matt, who gets him a mountain. And when it enters Cameron's battlefield, he gets another treasure off Tireless Provisioner. He'll then move to combat and swing his 3/4 Nazgul at Matt, who blocks with his 5/4 first strike, so the Nazgul dies. Cameron will then move to his end step, and since a creature died this turn, Smeagol will tempt him up to the 3rd ability, and then Smeagol will trigger, targeting Sam this time. It's a Scalding Tarn that Cameron can't use, but he does get to make a treasure when it enters the battlefield. He'll then pass the turn to Matt, who starts off with an island, and then he'll cast Thalia Heretic Cathar. Matt will then move to combat, make 2 2/2s, and then hit Cameron for 6 with his commander. The turn is then passed to Cody. Land tax trigger, and he'll play a Plains. He'll then cast Sword of Forge and Frontier. Cody will then move to combat and swing Frodo at Cameron. New sword auto-equips to Frodo, and Cameron decides to chump with his Nazgul, which does have Death Touch, but Frodo prevents all damage, so he's fine. He passes the turn, discards 4 planes, and Sam plays a mountain. He'll then tap for 5 and cast There and Back Again. And when it gets its first lore counter, he makes Smeagol unable to block. And the ring tempts him. He decides Sithis will be his ring bearer. After this, he'll activate his Scholar and remove the counter from There and Back Again to search for Spar's headquarters to the battlefield tapped, and he passes to Cameron while searching. And Cameron starts his turn off by casting Reanimate, and he targets one of his Nazgul. Cameron's been getting a whole lot of value off those Nazgul, so Matt decides to Swansong it. The Reanimate is countered, and Cameron gets a 2/2 flyer. After this, he casts Witch King of Angmar, hoping this will dissuade Cody from swinging at him. He'll then move to combat and swing Smeagol at Cody, and since Smeagol's the ring bearer, he'll draw and discard. And notably, the discarded card is Ring Wraiths. The turn is then passed to Matt, and he'll start off with Jalira, Master Polymorphist. Matt will then move to combat, make 2 more 2/2s, and draw a card. The turn is then passed to Cody, and you better believe he searches for 3 more basics. He'll play 1 as land for turn, then he'll cast Shadow Spear. He'll then equip the Shadow Spear and then move to combat and swing at Cameron. Now, it should be 15 commander Cameron is taking here, but when Cody counts up the total power, he forgets about the 2+1/+1 counters, so Cameron only takes 13 damage, and Cody will gain 13 life. Upon connecting, Cody's swords trigger, and Cameron's Witch King triggers, so Cody has to sacrifice Frodo, and Cameron is tempted by the ring to the 4th and final ability. This will also trigger Cameron's Ring Wraiths in the graveyard, returning it to his hand, and then Smeagol will also trigger, targeting Cody. And Cody actually mills a surprising amount of cards before he hits a Plains.
Flawless Maneuver, Relic Seeker, Sword of Feast and Famine, Enlightened Tutor, Vanquish the Horde, Lion Sash, and we always GTA land. Okay.
And when that Plains enters, Cameron gets another treasure. Cody then resolves his Forge and Frontier trigger, which exiles 2 cards, then he'll play another Plains from hand, and Truth and Justice no longer has any targets. After combat, Cody will then recast Frodo for 4, and he forgets that Frodo's attach ability is also when it ETBs, so he'll just pass the turn to Sam. Now on Sam's turn, There and Back Again gets its first lore counter again, and he makes Cameron's Witch King unable to block. After this, Sam will tap for 6 mana and cast the Kami War. When he enters the battlefield, he exiles Smeagol. Oh yeah, and he also draws and gains from Sithis. After this, he'll move to combat and hit Cody for 2 with Sithis, and since Sithis is his ring bearer and it's at its second ability, he'll draw and discard. Sam will then pass the turn to Cameron. And Cameron starts off by tapping for 6 and casting Ring Wraiths. When it enters the battlefield, he'll give Thalia Heretic Cathar -3/-3 till end of turn, and he does pay for the 1 ward. After Thalia dies, Cameron will cast Scoot Swarm, then he plays a basic Swamp, and he'll make another Scoot Swarm, and another treasure. He'll then pass the turn to Matt. And Matt starts off with Thalia's Lieutenant. When it enters the battlefield, he puts a 1/1 counter on each other human he controls, but he forgets to see the word other, so the Lieutenant will get one as well. After this, Matt decides to pay 3 mana to his Master Polymorphist and sacrifice one of his tokens to spin the wheel. And the card he hits is Cathar Commando. Pretty good one in my opinion. He does miss his Thalia's Lieutenant trigger, but that kind of makes up for the extra counter he put on it. Matt will then move to combat, and he makes 2 more 2/2s, and he gets to draw a card off Eowyn. Thalia's Lieutenant will trigger 2 times, and he remembers it after combat. He'll then swing 28 damage at Cameron. Cameron puts his 2/2 bird in front of Eowyn, and then he puts Tireless Provisioner underneath one of Matt's 4/3 tramplers, meaning when damage goes through, he'll take 19 and go to 1. Witch King triggers, and Matt sacrifices one of his smaller tokens, and then the Tireless Provisioner should have killed one of the bigger ones, but I guess it doesn't. Matt will then pass the turn, and Cody triggers land tax and finds 3 more basics to his hand. Then on Cody's first main, he'll play a Plains into Sol Ring into Arden. Then he'll drop Auriok Steel Shaper. He'll then move to combat, and everything is auto-equipped to Frodo. He'll then turn Frodo sideways at Cameron for 15 trample lifelink. And there is just no way around it. Cameron is super dead, and Cody gains another 15. And unfortunately, Cameron's Witch King isn't able to do anything here, since he dies from the damage. Cody's swords will also trigger, so he puts a counter on Frodo and proliferates it, then he'll exile the top 2 cards of his library and play an additional planes. The 2 exiled cards are Esper Sentinel and Commander's Plate, and Cody decides to cast them both. He'll then equip the Commander's Plate with his last mana and then pass the turn to Sam. Sam will stop on instep to activate his Scholar, and he'll remove a counter from Kami War to go find a plains to the battlefield tapped. And the plains he finds is a Sacred Foundry. The Kami War and There and Back Again will both tick up. He'll find a basic mountain to the battlefield, and then he'll exile Eowyn, and he will pay the ward cost. After this, he'll play the World Tree as land for turn, and then an Eidolon of Blossoms, Sithis trigger. He draws a card when it ETBs, and then he'll cast Tom Bombadil. After this, he'll move to combat and swing for 2 at Cody with Sithis. Ring Bearer trigger, he'll draw a card and discard 1. There are no blocks, so after combat, Sam passes the turn to Matt. And Matt starts off by polymorphing one of his smaller tokens. The human he finds is Scheming Fence, which does almost nothing here. So as it enters the battlefield, he names Shadow Spear, so now it can take hexproof and indestructible away from things. Thalia's Lieutenant will also trigger. He'll then cast Lighthouse Chronologist, missing the Thalia's Lieutenant trigger this time, and then he'll just pass the turn to Cody, hoping Cody will kill Sam instead of him this turn. And on Cody's upkeep, he'll tutor 3 more basics to his hand, cause Sam still has more lands than him. He'll then play 1 as land for turn, and then he'll disenchant There and Back Again. Cody will then cast Stonehewer Giant, and then Armored Sky Hunter. He'll then move to combat and turn Frodo sideways at Matt, who can't block it between the Commander's Plate and the swords. So upon connecting, Matt dies, and Cody will exile the top 2 cards of his library, put a counter on Frodo and proliferate it, and gain 22 life from lifelink. One of the exiled cards was Sigarda's Aid, so Cody will play it, and then he'll play another land. The turn is then passed to Sam. Let's see if he can take Cody down. His turn starts off with the Kami War ticking up, and he'll bounce Sword of Truth and Justice to Cody's hand. Sam will then tap for 5 and cast Elspeth Conquers Death. Sithis trigger when he casts it, and an Eidolon trigger when it enters the battlefield. Then it'll get its first lore counter, and Sam will copy it with his Weaver of Harmony. So the 2 triggers will target Arden and Sword of Forge and Frontier. He will pay for Esper Sentinel, and then he'll tap for 3 to cast Hannah, Ship's Navigator. The turn is then passed to Cody, who is still 1 land behind Sam, so he tutors out 3 more basics to his hand. And then he'll play 1 of them as land for turn. Cody then recasts Sword of Truth and Justice, but Sam decides to respond to the cast by channeling Otawara and bouncing Frodo. You might be thinking, wait, Frodo has Commander's Plate, so he has Pro Blue. Lands are colorless, so Otawara's ability can still target and bounce Frodo. The sword will then resolve, and when it hits the battlefield, Sigarda's Aid will attach it to his Sky Hunter. Cody will then recast Frodo and then activate Stonehewer Giant. The tutored card is Sword of Hearth and Home, and when it enters the battlefield, it attaches to the Sky Hunter as well. Cody then remembers that Frodo did have an ETB trigger, and Sam's okay with him resolving it, so Cody will equip Blackblade Reforged to Frodo. Then after this, the Sky Hunter gets Shadow Spear equipped to it. Then Commander's Plate gets equipped to Frodo. Cody will then move to combat and swing at Sam with the Sky Hunter. Attack trigger, he looks at the top 6 cards and gets to put an aura or equipment from among them to the battlefield and attach it to a creature. It's a whiff, so Sam takes 8. Cody declines Hearth and Home trigger, Truth and Justice targets Frodo, and then Cody passes. ECD ticks up to 2, and the Kami War will tick up to 3, transforming it. Bombadil trigger. Tom Bombadil hits Kiora Best the Sea God, and when it hits the battlefield and gets its first lore counter, Sam gets to make an 8/8. He then decides that he wants to activate Weaver of Harmony to make it 2 8/8s. Sam also gets to draw a card off of his Eidolon. He'll then cast Enchantress's Presence, and he does pay the 1. Then he has a Sithis trigger and an Eidolon trigger. He'll then play Urza Saga as land for turn, which does trigger the Eidolon. Then he'll tap for 5 and cast Yorion. When Yorion enters the battlefield, he'll exile Kiora Best the Sea God, Elspeth Conquers Death, Okagachi Made Manifest, his Eidolon, Sithis, and Enchantress's Presence. He'll then move to his end step, and they all hit the battlefield again. The Eidolon enters alongside them, so it draws him a card for each other enchantment that enters. Kiora Best the Sea God will make another 8/8, and then ECD and Kami War will trigger. ECD exiles Sword of Hearth and Home, and the Kami War hits the Shadow Spear. Sam then says he discards a bunch of cards in his cleanup, and then he'll pass the turn to Cody. And Cody will decline land tax, then equip Sword of Truth and Justice to Frodo, then activate Stonehewer Giant. It finds Whisper Silk Cloak, which is put on Frodo. Frodo and Armored Sky Hunter are turned sideways at Sam, but in response, Sam will tap for a green and channel Boseiju to destroy Commander's Plate. It resolves and Cody finds a planes to the battlefield. Oh yeah, and there was an Armored Sky Hunter trigger, so let's go to resolve that. And he finds Sword of Fire and Ice and he attaches it to the Sky Hunter. Sam can't block Frodo because of Whisper Silk Cloak, and he realizes he made a bit of an error with his Beseju. He didn't realize how many lands Cody had out, and because of Blackblade Reforged, Frodo is above 21 power, so when Frodo connects, Sam dies. So that means Cody wins. Congratulations, man. Well, everybody, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed our second part of the new Lord of the Rings set. Now, before you go roasting us in the comments about all the minor mistakes we made, yeah, we did make several, but please be lenient with us. We had been playing all day, and Magic is a really mentally taxing game. We are SmoothBrainEDH after all. We can't be perfect. Anyways, if you enjoyed, please let us know down in the comments below, and leave a like if you haven't already. And while you're down there, don't forget to check out all of our links. Please check out the Frodo list. It was made by our patron Gutty. We love that dude. But that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you all have a smooth day.